Hi, D-dubs. I don't know what to call you that. I don't really know where that came from.
D-dubs.
I was going to say DW, and it always just makes me think of that TV programme.
Arnold.
Arthur.
Arthur, yeah.
Does anyone ever call you that?
I used to get called DW. Hey, DW.
Yeah.
All the time at school.
I can imagine.
So thanks. Thanks for that.
I think I do it when I talk about you a lot.
DW, yeah.
DW, yeah.
D-dubs.
D-dubs. Anyway.
The new N-dubs.
Something we're going to talk about today, that's a quick intro, is clients, one of our favourite topics. But I don't want to use the word chaos, because I think that's maybe a little bit extreme.
Yeah.
But the situation that arises when you have that client that is just constantly changing their direction and changing the priority and outcome they want.
Yeah.
So how to spot it early on,
Yeah.
how to deal with it, how to prevent that, and actually, I think even when's the right time to really listen to that client and, yeah, flip the strategy on its head, go in a different direction.
Yeah. I like that you didn't want to use the word chaos, because we've got to say it, like, we do understand and sympathise.
100%. Like, the thing about marketing is, like, we've seen every situation and we know what's going on in the background. We know it's not necessarily just somebody's had an idea.
No.
And they've gone, oh, let's completely change this and feed that into our agency and change everything. There's normally weeks of conversations that have gone into it. There's different people's opinions. There's people that have been in the business different amounts of times. Like, I don't think we'd ever be the people to just instantly shut something down.
No.
And agencies are quite bad sometimes for doing that. Where they just think they know best. They've set something in motion. That's the direction they go in.
Yeah.
There is no flexibility. They don't really want to pivot.
Yeah.
But that art of understanding what's going on the client side and the why something might change or why an opinion might change is really, really important.
Yeah, it is. And equally, I think it's fair to shout out the other side, which is agencies can be bad for also just going and accepting everything that a client throws their way.
Yeah.
So there is somewhere, there's a balance to strike in the middle of this.
Yeah, definitely.
Which is certainly going to come up to discuss. But yeah, let's talk about it, because it happens. It happens with us.
Yeah.
It happens with businesses. That's the point, doesn't it? Like,
businesses aren't static.
no, and so they shouldn't be.
And neither's the business world and neither's the marketing world.
No.
And neither are the people that are receiving marketing on the other side.
Yeah.
Like, all of that is like such a changeable field.
Yeah, I mean, we're recording this the day before Halloween in 2025. For anyone who might be listening to this at whatever stage you are, we are right in the midst of, from a search perspective, change. Not even every day, but like every half a day there's something new that comes left of field, and we have to consider it and look into it. So like these sort of macro factors in the environments that we work in, we completely understand that they may force change.
Yeah.
So we get it. Like,
but then also what you're saying there is quite interesting, because it's really easy for an agency to, like, we're being thrown these news updates constantly at the moment. Like, my inbox is full of it. Our Slack is going off with these things that people are sharing all the time, and the conversations that are going on in the office and with people in, like, the wider marketing world is constantly about how search is changing, this new thing we've heard, constant. And it's actually quite hard for an agency not to just constantly be like, right, we need to jump on that, we need to change that, this needs to There's like an art to
definitely
actually just keeping control, taking stock of things, seeing how that something might play out in the long run. But if we jumped on every single little piece of news we heard and pivoted our strategy around it, you'd never get anything done.
No. No, you'd just be you almost feel like you'd be, and don't get me wrong, like PR, there's absolutely a big need and opportunity for like reactive PR, absolutely, but you'd just be in reactive mode all the time, and I'm certain that you'd just lose sight of potentially things like your values, what you're striving for as like in the bigger picture.
Yep.
And you're almost going like campaign by campaign, and it feels like you're achieving something when ultimately what are you actually
going?
Yeah, what are you actually compromising on there, and what are you sacrificing? Because let's be honest, I know we'll get into this a little bit more, and we really like thinking about this, but like, what's the cost of that change?
Yeah.
Like, that's something that we'll talk about in a little
And
bit
that's
more
not
detail.
just like a monetary cost either.
No,
That's like
there's cost in
impact cost.
Yeah, impact, time, money. Like there's just several different variables of cost that I know that we'll get into. But yeah, in terms of, like you said, situations changing and the word pivoting, I'm almost certain apart from Friends, the episode on Friends, the word pivot to me, and again, this goes with the territory of what we're saying. Pretty sure I only properly came across it in life around COVID, because businesses were pivoting to react to, like, I'm pretty sure it was like a trend word, whatever I'm trying to say, around that time. Understandably.
What was the other one that year? Unprecedented. That was
unprecedented. Yeah.
Was that the dictionary review?
But that is a perfect example. Like, we couldn't have said, nope, COVID isn't happening, like, bury your head, when all these businesses, like, what I remember, one of the perfect examples of a project that we had thrown our way during at the start of COVID, you know, when everyone was like panic stations, understandably, was a massive global beer brand, sadly not Guinness, but a massive global beer brand who, because their biggest revenue was through trade, i.e. pubs and restaurants, which obviously were shut because of COVID, they needed to go pivot, I'm saying it in inverted commas for anyone who's just listening, pivot to an online selling model, and we helped them basically e-commerceify their website, which was great and completely understandable. Now, we had to go with that change. What could we have said? Because they fundamentally had to change their model.
There wasn't another option, really.
Of course. So we're not talking about these huge, as I mentioned a couple of minutes ago, macro environmental variables and changes that, like COVID coming along, that we're not going to challenge that to almost bury our head and ignore it and tell a client, nope, stick to your guns, because there's some quite obvious necessary situations where you're going to have to, call it pivot, change direction. But this has been a little bit, our conversation, I think, has been a little bit more strategic, where there is an opportunity to be strategic and not just keep shifting.
Not a forced hand,
Yeah.
Okay, so what are the situations? So you've just sort of mentioned one there that was kind of like a bit of a forced situation.
Yeah.
But I think like the other ones we see, I think probably more like day to day.
Yeah.
So good ones are, one that we come back to a lot is obviously the brand versus performance, the classic debate.
Yeah.
And I think that is a switch that we see go on and off quite a lot amongst conversations with clients, potential clients, just people we have in the marketing world, where it's like, we're focusing on brand, actually no, we want to focus on performance, actually no, like there's, that is a really easy one that people constantly seem to flip between. Yeah. Obviously we know the direction should be take both and constantly work on both. It should be a good balance of the two. Yeah. But I think particularly the performance side of it and that more sales lead driven side of it for those particular clients that sort of focus on that, it's really hard if things are taking a slight downturn in the business or there's pressure from elsewhere, not to just jump in and get performance.
Forget brand.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's this thing that we keep coming back to, isn't it? That and branded performance is a real topical, timely thing that we've been speaking about for 18 months at least on these podcasts. But it's an obvious one. I had a voice note from someone I'm speaking to this week, a prospect I'm speaking to this week, and they said, how did they word it? They said, I've come into the role and the business sort of doesn't believe in brand, but they've said,
Love that phrase.
Yeah, what do you mean by that? Well, we've lost some business recently, and we need pipeline, and so we need leads into the pipeline, and that's valid and fine.
Yeah.
But is that not just another reaction? So in other words, we don't believe in brand or whatever, forget that point, but business revenue, however you want to look at it, is down. We have to just absolutely double down. And the market's tough. This year has been really tough for longer
last
than
year,
that.
last 2 years.
And when we say market, we're talking near enough all industry.
Everything.
Really tough.
Yeah.
That plays its part as well, obviously. But I feel like in the last 24 months, there have been so many more examples of brands who have, let's say, grit the teeth and stuck with brand.
Yep.
And I'll focus on what I've just said there in terms of the timescale. The last 24 months, that isn't an overnight thing. You have to stick with brand, for example.
That's why brand is so hard.
It is because of pressures from, as we keep saying, like macro, micro pressures, some out of your control, some arguably within your control. It is forcing it. A lot of those force or tend to force that short term, panicky, reactive sort of mindset. But call it brave, and I know we've called it brave on a podcast episode before, and then I've corrected myself because it shouldn't be seen as brave. But those more long-term thinking and believing brands, there's enough data out there to show that their shift away from being like Airbnb, I know we use it all the time, but that shift away from being like almost wholeheartedly a performance marketing brand into being a brand that has shifted the balance. That's like 2 years, 3 years in the making. It's hard. That's a hard timeline to bed in and just believe when the numbers in front of it. Yeah. The numbers in front of you could be looking really shit.
And I think this is like a common thing we see. So like a phrase I have heard time and time again, and I'm sure you have as well, is that whole thing of we just want to try a few different things, see what sticks. And like from our point of view as an agency, there's no way we'd just be like, yeah, sure, that's a great tactic.
Yeah.
Obviously, we would sit down and like, no, that's not how it works. This is the roadmap that we're putting forward. This is the strategy that we're putting forward. But not every agency would do that.
No.
Some would just be like, yeah, sure, we'll just split it all out, like throw bits here and there.
Yeah.
And obviously, there is always room for testing, 100%.
Yeah.
Which I guess, elements of that are testing. Want to try a few things, see what sticks. That is testing.
Yeah.
But it should be controlled and it should be planned, mapped out. And the other thing, like, I think these are more things that you can address early on to mitigate further down the line these quick pivots and unhappy clients and whatever, is alongside that roadmap, very clear KPIs.
Yeah, I mean, that's such a downfall, isn't it?
Such a downfall,
a lack of KPIs is, and we've talked about it from different angles previously, but this one is just, it's really obvious when there's an absence of a KPI, because you may be 3 months down the line, a quarter into a relationship, and all these changes have been either attempted to be made or have been made, and you go, do you remember 3 months ago when we started, what were we actually...
What we're working towards.
Yeah, what we're heading for.
And I think there's another thing as well, like making sure those KPIs are aligned. Like if every team and every service is working towards something different and has something different in their heads, something there is not right.
Yeah.
Yes, people have different metrics they track.
Yeah.
KPIs do differ, but there should be some like cohesion across services and across teams.
Yeah, definitely. Side point, but related. We also appreciate that this can be as controlled and as agreed within agency and marketing team, client side marketing team as possible. But we also know that other people get involved.
Yeah.
And that's the
Yes.
hardest thing. Like, not the hardest thing. That's another difficult thing to navigate. We do appreciate, we understand that those forces that may be more uncontrollable could also be internal. There could be people
Massively,
that
yeah.
are the board, and we've talked about this, it's its own fucking conversation, rightly so, but those people who stick their nose in, basically, to marketing, who are totally unsolicited, unqualified to do so, but they will do. I'm not going to say this is just a blanket claim here, but CFOs, because ultimately they're aligned with the budget, might not always have the grasp of the marketing team and stick their nose in, regardless of the KPI exercise that might have happened. That almost pales into insignificance at a time when a CFO might think, no, we're not, for example, the pipeline's thin or sales are down, e-com sales are down. A CFO could stick their nose in, and you might have all these very scientific and agreed and aligned KPIs within marketing. But ultimately, if the budget holder is someone else or somewhere else in the business, they're going to, as I say, stick their 2 pence in. And
Like, it should be, and obviously this is a wildly different topic. A marketing team is given a budget. Yes, budgets can be cut at any point. But regardless of whether those budgets are cut, they should still be able to do with that money what they feel fit.
But we know that in reality, that just, in many places it is.
Yeah.
But in also we're giving both
Can you
sides.
imagine heirs coming to me and telling me what to do with the marketing budget?
Back off. But you're right. Another thing I wanted to, without naming names, we've worked with a brand several years ago, company, and they were on a massive growth trajectory, which is great. And if I'm honest, we really have the appetite, and have done for a while, but really now are sort of going after and focusing on brands who want to grow. It's not, we don't just want the remit of, like, we call it maintenance versus actual growth.
We want to along.
Yeah, we're not there to sort of fulfill something. We want to push something. And this brand were in quite a niche, but a niche where there were opportunities for them to, let's dumb it down, to like expand into different categories and new categories. And with that, it was that exciting scale up, like chaos. I'm going to use the word at this point, because it was. And as their agency, it was really hard going into each weekly call with them to try to stick to the agenda, knowing that who you were reporting into was almost more excited to tell us what the new category is that they're going to go into, and therefore we need to start some campaigns to generate, say, awareness, whatever, in these new categories. And honestly, it got to the point where the team were quite deflated going onto the calls, and it was almost a mismatch, because our team would be going onto the calls thinking, what's the new category going to be this week?
What's been thrown at
Where's
us?
the focus going to completely shift? We can't bed in. And the almost irony with that is the client was coming onto those calls dead excited, because they were like, we've got more to sell, basically. I get it. I completely get it. You're in growth, scale up, like aggressive growth targets. There's opportunities there. But as an agency, you're almost like, what's that thing? You can't see ducks or swans or whatever, what's going on underwater, because they're absolutely... I can't remember what the phrase is. But like absolutely fucking pedaling to keep up.
Yeah.
But trying to be smooth and like coasting on top, but actually you're really trying to keep up. That was like that.
It's like you're just not sticking with anything long enough to see results.
No. And I'll be honest, it wasn't just because of this, but it was destined. We're no longer working together, but it's destined for it to be, I'm not going to say a failure, but an unsustainable relationship. And lo and behold, that was the result, which is a shame, because you do want the excitement and the growth opportunities from the brand side. I mean, being really sort of, as I kept saying, like a maintenance type relationship is a bit shit compared to like growth.
100%. You want
But
the challenge.
equally, exactly that. But equally, like, stick with something. Stick with a few things, but stick with those few things. But stick with them. Like, please give us 6 to 12 months. I mean, me and Lee are having an interesting conversation, our CEO, at the moment, about our contract durations, terms that we're going into, that around how fast moving and ever changing search is.
Yeah.
That we can't be looking at something for 3 months, because
for momentum,
exactly,
to really make an impact.
Momentum, impact, and
It
ultimately
takes you 3 months to bed in with a brand and understand
navigating
them
is really hard. So, you know, we're not really speaking about anything less than 12 months.
like me and Lee just already speaking.
Yeah, mainly out speaking. Falling out now. We're fully aligned, because stuff is changing around us at the drop of a hat, and you need some sort of like a cut through all of that, let's say chaos and change, that is your sort of, let's say, sticking to your guns, be that sticking to a campaign, sticking to your values, sticking to what you believe in. And yeah, like, I hate saying it, but I'm going to use it again because I don't know what other word to use, but like, be braver, like, trust.
Off the back of that, like, at what point, if you have a client that is constantly doing this, they're constantly changing their mind, they're coming in with new strategies, they're coming in with new opinions, where are the situations where you turn around and say, do you know what, we can't help you, like, this isn't how we work?
Yeah, have we talked about similar before in like, you know, if a client goes quiet,
I think you talked about like red flags and stuff.
Yeah, like, you've obviously got to try and sort it out.
Yeah.
Not just get pissed off and throw your toys out the pram and say, right, that's it. We're not working. Got to try. And I guess I would immediately think, right, go back to the beginning. You've talked about KPIs on this. Like, let's revisit KPIs. Let's have a conversation about what we all signed off and agreed that, and hopefully some of those KPIs are longer term thinking. That would help. Because obviously if they were very short term,
immediate wins,
then it probably doesn't help the conversation at this stage of the relationship. So you definitely need to communicate, going back to the beginning, and see what KPIs were agreed. Obviously KPIs can change as well, and we've talked about this. They have to change. I get it, but there's got to be some kind of longevity in your thinking as well when you set those KPIs. So I think go back to those. Obviously have a conversation, an open conversation, and say, look at what we, go back to roadmaps and things like that.
Set all that out. But I think the other thing is just thinking about where that comes from, where the decisions are coming from.
Yeah.
And if it's not, if you can see quite clearly that it's not coming through the marketing team, there's other people constantly swaying this decision. I honestly would say that's a moment to really consider, like, is this going to work? Because if a business operates like that, they're not going to change.
No.
And it's fine. It's fine for a business to operate like that if that's what works for them. But as marketing professionals, that's not always the best direction for us.
No, it's not. I agree with you. I think there is definitely I think you'd know if it's reached the end. Sounds like a relationship. In many ways it is.
Literally, it's emotional.
Emotionally draining. You would every case is going to be different, isn't it? There's not a blanket, right, we've all reached this point in this relationship, therefore this equals the end. It doesn't work like that. We get that. You got to try things. Communication helps. To your point there, the situation where it's an outside marketing team influence that is too influential. Yeah, that could be the end of the road. What I would probably say is, again, it's about the communication between you as the client and you as the agent and the agency. Like, what can be done with that person or that outside influence? Can we bring them into the conversation? Or is it like...
Like, you've got to accept they're always if that's how the business runs, they're always going to be there.
Yeah.
Can you make it work?
Yeah.
Can you give more?
Like, how do you
to settle
advise we
them?
make this work? Yeah, it's that kind of conversation, and that goes zooming, focusing down on that topic specifically. We know that we have to work. We know that we work with both colleagues and clients, different characters. People are very detailed. People are very creative. People are both of those.
Mm-hmm.
It's in the same way as an outside marketing influence who might be, as I said, too influential and upsetting the sort of longevity and the things that you're trying to do. Learn who they are and how they work and what might be the...
It's one of the most important parts of our job.
Yeah, it is. Definitely is. Like,
at the end of the day, you're dealing with a business, but you're dealing with people.
Stakeholder management. And stakeholders are indirect and direct.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the thing where you're almost in sales world, when it's like prospecting stage, you talk about account mapping. So like the brand or account that you're going after, the different either decision makers or influencers or champions or whatever, that sort of mapping the account. It's exactly the same when it's a client. Exactly the same.
You've got to know where those decisions and opinions are coming from.
Yeah, who's going to be in the room, but who's not going to be in the room, but like they're in the room.
But their opinion's going to be
exactly
in the
that.
room. Yeah.
And we know we're in marketing. That person that I mentioned earlier in the conversation that voice noted me said that budgets had been cut, like say last year, and they went on to sort of joke, but you'd get this, we all get this. Said, of course there were. Like, marketing budget was cut. Of course there were.
I don't really know anybody at the moment who hasn't.
It's shit. But, and again, we've talked about this. People don't see it as an investment. They see it as a cost. And honestly, investment versus cost are, for me, how I take them. There's timeliness to both of those. Investment feels like stick with it.
Yep.
Longer term. Cost feels like very transactional, like
and switch it on
short
and off.
term.
Yeah.
And I think that's another nuance of the connotations that I take for even too subtle but two words that can mean the same thing. So framing something as an investment versus a cost, I think they have slight different meanings.
I agree.
And how they're taken.
I feel like that's an episode, you know.
Marketing is an investment, should be an investment, not seen as a cost. That's why it gets cut. See it as a cost, short term. It's not delivering. Where's the return? It's thought about completely in the wrong way.
Mm-hmm.
And it goes with exactly what we're saying here. You might see a CFO who is responsible for cost centres, not investment centres.
Yeah.
That to me, again...
He's looking at direct return, like...
Yeah. It's the same. These things all feed the same issue, let's say. Right now, the office phone is ringing.
I know.
out
I just
there
heard that. I was like, is anyone going to answer?
Yeah.
Do you want a quick fire round?
Yeah, I think just very quickly, one point that we touched on, cost, the cost of all of this. So there's opportunity cost.
Oh, as in the cost of pivoting.
Yeah. That's a good way of constantly thinking about this. So if just, for example, it was your finance department as a marketer who was sticking the nose in.
Yep.
The best way to go back to them as an agency could go to the client and just say, right, you want us to shift, for example, this is how much it's going to cost us as a business. And that can be pounds and pence. It can be time. It can be impact, you mentioned. It can be momentum as well. And
also the cost of switching off. Like just saying, even if it's not just like move this to this, etc., but stop this area or, you know, stop focusing on brand, right? This is how much it's going to cost you in the next 12 months.
I think that's a great way. I'm honing in on the finance department now. I understand there are other teams and people that can stick their nose in. But...
It's one we see commonly.
And how good is that to go back and speak their language then? Okay, CFO, I've heard what you said. We now need to focus on whatever. Can I just tell you how much that's going to cost us? You're talking to finance.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
that's what they want to know.
Exactly. Yeah. So brilliant way of pushing back and framing it as, you know, we as a marketing team are investing our time in, just for example, brand. you as a finance team want us to shift that spend and time into, say, just performance.
Yep.
This is how much it's going to cost us as a business. That has to be listened to by a finance person. Because you're talking how much it's going to cost. So it's a simple shift, but it's worth doing.
Definitely. I'm going to do a clap because George likes a clap before quickfire now. Right.
The audience clapped. Great episode, you two.
I wonder if anybody ever has clapped for our podcast.
I'm going to say no.
I'm going to say no too. Okay, so it's a little bit of like a really quick answer, and I guess you can answer it how you like how you interpret it.
Okay.
But the easiest way that I'm looking at it is almost like, is this a red flag?
Okay.
So, new CMO every 6 months.
Yeah, red flag.
Mm-hmm.
Big red flag. Why the change? Why at that level as well?
That's a massive level to be switching up all the time.
Yeah.
Massive influence.
Yeah. Like, there's so many questions there. But you're right, like, seniority there and influence and decision-making authority. Why? What is going on there? So, yeah, a massive red flag.
Brief signed off, then changed by legal.
Oof, that's hard.
I mean, it depends.
Yeah, it does.
Depends what it is, because sometimes that
Exactly.
could just be something and nothing.
As we're looking to do more and more in financial services and banking, like legal, obviously, compliance, all those things, it's hard. That's a hard one. I'll stick with red flag and, yeah, a worry. But I think the biggest red flag would be from legal side, because they'd be like, we need to get involved here. Who is this agency, for example, that have written this, brief or proposal? So, yeah, that's quite a difficult one, but yeah, it's probably not so great, but red flag.
Okay, not red flag, but more a question. Test ideas or push for strategy?
Do I have to pick one? Because I'd say both.
I'd say both too.
It's that
I think
concurrent. You can do two
and
things
early
at
on,
once.
you've got to test.
Yeah.
You can't possibly sit down and be like, we've got a 12-month strategy. Maybe if you've got historical test data or whatever else, but you've got to test in those first few months to be able to determine what that strategy looks like anyway. And also part of your strategy should be testing.
Of course it should. I cannot believe that anyone can get by right now, given what we've said about how bonkers search and the search world is at the moment in terms of change. How can you get by without testing? Things have been thrown at us. Tools, platforms.
We don't know what's going on.
So you just...
We interpret what we think is going on.
And you can...
But we don't know until we've actually played around in that space for a set period of time.
Stick to your expertise, what you know you're good at. Stick to your lane in that sense, but broaden your application across testing. Everyone must be testing now, but they're not.
They're definitely not.
No.
Okay, fixed strategy deck or like a live working doc?
See, a live working doc, given the episode or the conversation we've just had, could be detrimental.
Very much so, because it can force that pivot. But also your strategy, you want it to be fixed, you want some set KPIs, you want to know what you're aiming towards, but you also have to appreciate that like it does still need reviewing.
Of course it does.
Because like we just said, everything is changing constantly.
Yeah.
And that obviously affects your strategy.
I honestly don't know how you can choose one over the other with that one. Because it
kind of need a bit of both.
Yeah.
Like you do need those big KPIs that don't change too much and they're set for however long in the future, and that's like the North Star, that is where you're aiming.
Yeah.
Like this is what they want.
Yeah.
The bits that get you there, you can have a rough idea, but
that's
it needs to be flexible.
That's where your testing plan feels like it should sit.
Yeah.
So I think I agree with you. For longevity, have those strategy decks, and almost for that paper trail of like when you're doing those reviews.
Yep.
But absolutely have reviews. You cannot just sit on what you said
Just
2
keep
years
doing the
ago,
same
for
thing,
example.
yeah.
We get that. But then a live, how did you put it? Like a live document, that's still needed. And probably around like testing. That's where you're going to have it. So both. Thank you.
Thank you.